Hello, beautiful black people. I hope that all is well in your world and this day progress very, very successfully for you and all of your wonderful, wonderful black loved ones. The question is, are those white police officers and do the 18,000 or so police departments right here on this plantation called America house a cadre of white racist bastards? And the answer is yes. And yes, they do. Why does everyone think that the Nazis were racist? Certainly, Hitler was definitely racist. He ordered the extermination of the Jews from Germany and later from all over Europe once he became the Chancellor of Germany. Hitler was racist. Hitler built what was called the Third Reich. He built the Third Reich, a political, a social, and an economic regime based on the idea of Aryan white supremacy. Certainly, the Nazi soldiers built death camps to facilitate one of the biggest mass murders in history, while, according to Hitler, biographer Ian Kershaw, Hitler kept his hands clean. And you may not know this, but Hitler never, ever visited a single concentration camp, let alone a death camp. He did not visit any death camp. Hitler kept himself aloof from the dirtiest work of his regime. That's what Trump attempts to do. He did not speak about the final solution, even to his closest entourage, other than in vague terms. Maybe the Nazis weren't racist. Maybe they were not racist. It is perhaps they were just compelled to build and uphold a racist system created at the behest of a white supremacy maniac named Hitler. And remember, a white supremacy maniac called Trump. This white supremacy maniac named Hitler was careful not to overtly spell out his agenda. He did not want to expose what his final solutions were. On October the 30th, 1943, while Hitler was still alive, the U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt met with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and Russian leader Joseph Stalin in Moscow to sign a statement declaring their intentions to support the punishment of any Germans who participated in Nazi Germany, who participated in all of those atrocities, all of the massacres, and the cold-blooded mass executions. Remember the Black Holocaust, all of the kidnapping, all of the enslavement, all of the millions of black folks thrown overboard during the transatlantic slave trade. Remember all of those mass murders during the Black Holocaust also. But if you just focus on Hitler, the declaration of atrocities, and if you condemn Germans who took part in the wholesale shootings of Italian officers, or in the execution of French, Dutch, Belgian, or Norwegian hostages, or of Cretan peasants. All of those folks were killed by the Nazis, or who have shared in the slaughter inflicted on the people of Poland, or in the territories of the Soviet Union, which are now being swept clear of the enemy. Putin have been doing atrocities for the past 15 years. The declaration also warned anyone who would act on behalf of the Hitlerite forces in the future, declaring, "Let those who have hitherto knot their hands with innocent blood beware, lest they join the ranks of the guilty. For most assuredly, the three Allied powers will pursue them to the uttermost ends of the earth, and will deliver them to the accusers in order that justice may be done." This is one of the statements, one of the promises that was executed by Franklin Roosevelt, Joseph Stalin, and Winston Churchill during that meeting in 1943 in Moscow. If you compare that to Donald Trump's administrations, the Nazis were not racist. On June the 7th, Attorney General William Barr, the nation's highest law enforcement official, told Face the Nation. He told Face the Nation, I believe the reporter was Margaret Brennan, that, and I'm quoting what William Barr said, he said, I think there's racism in the United States still, but I do not think that the law enforcement system is systematically racist. I understand the distrust. however, of the African Americans community, given the history of this country. I think we have to recognize that for most of our history, our institutions was explicitly racist. That's what Bill Barr said during that interview with Margaret Brennan. I close quotes. Then a few days later, this punk-ass white boy, Larry Kudlow, repeatedly denied the existence of systemic racism while noting that some very bad apples on the law enforcement side was easily mitigated by the fact that many black folks have jobs. What a bunch of bullshit. These white boys are devout delusionists. See, back to the Nazis. There were just a few bad Nazis on the mass extermination side. Most Nazis were just doing their jobs, protecting, defending, and extending a white supremacy empire. That's the type of attitude, sentiment that is being expressed by William Barr, by Vice President Pence, by Larry Kudlow, by Donald Trump, and by that racist Republican Party. They are all minimizing and trying to convince the rest of us that regarding systemic racism, it is only a few bad cops, and the other 99% are good cops. If there are any good cops, then where are the good cops when the bad cops are murdering, publicly lynching unarmed black folks? Where are the good cops when the bad cops are writing those fictitious, fake-ass police reports and lying every time that their lips are moving? There are no good cops. There are no good white cops. So let me qualify that. There are no good white cops. There are definitely some good black cops, because black cops are not killing unarmed white folks. Black cops are not killing unarmed black folks. So there are definitely some good black cops out there. According to the 2017 data from the United States Sentencing Commission, black male offenders receive sentences that are, on average, 19.1% longer than white male offenders who commit the same crimes and have the same criminal history. That is systemic racism within that justice system, that injustice system that we have established right here on this plantation called America for black folks. White folks use and sell illegal drugs at a higher rate than black folks, but black folks are 6.5 times more likely to be arrested and convicted for drugs. Another example of systemic racism. The Stanford Open Policing Project analyzed data from more than 200 million traffic cops and found that black folks, people that look like me, are 2.5 times more likely to be stopped and 4 times more likely to be searched than white drivers, but white drivers were more likely to have contraband. My beautiful, intelligent black brothers and sisters, another example of systemic racism. Donald Trump, Bill Barr say there is no systemic racism in law enforcement. Tim Scott says there's no systemic racism in this country whatsoever. Police are twice as likely to use force on black folks versus white suspects, according to a 2016 report from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. More evidence of systemic racism. Over the course of their lives, over the course of our lives, black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by white cops than are white men, and black women are about 1.5 times more likely to be killed by white cops than white women. More evidence of systemic racism targeted at black folks, people that look like me. A study by the National Registry of Exoneration found that black folks are only 13% of the American population, but black folks constitutes 47% of the 1,900 exonerations listed in the National Registry of Exonerations as of October 2016. And the great majority of more than 1,800 additional innocent defendants who was framed and convicted of crimes in 15 large-scale white cop scandals and later cleared in group exonerations. More evidence of systemic racism right here on this plantation called America. There can be no doubt the way black folks in America are policed is undeniably racist to the core. And who is to blame? The white supremacy ideology embedded in the national criminal justice system existed long before any white cop in America was ever born. It predates William Barr, it predates George Floyd, or even it predates Donald Trump. They did not build this systemic racism in every facet of life for black folks right here on this plantation called America. Donald Trump, William Barr, the Republican Party are now the caretakers. They are the caretakers of that white supremacy system that is now endemic right here on this plantation called America. Police officers did not create the laws they enforce. Those laws was created by white racist politicians. However, those police officers, they do enforce existing statutes in a way that disproportionately harms black folks. It is not racist to arrest people for having drugs in their pocket, but if white folks use more cocaine, more heroin, and more opioids, but black people are arrested more often for illegal possession of drugs, then the police are enforcing the laws in a racist manner. Absolutely. Perhaps the most accurate way to define a racist is by the acts of racism they commit. Even though we have known the facts on how the long arm of the law disproportionately chokes the life out of black folks, the silence from the law enforcement community is deafening. The silence from the law enforcement community is complicit in all of those suffocations, all of those public lynching, all of those murders of black folks. This is not to say all white police officers hate black folks any more than white workers at McDonald's employees support heart attacks. However, if one were to ask a McDonald's employee whether it was safe to eat 2 Big Macs and a large fry, they wouldn't try to convince you that the burgers was actually protecting your arteries. You see the logic in that, my beautiful, intelligent black brothers and sisters? Yet, whenever someone points out racial injustice, many, if not most, white cops will vehemently defend the white supremacy institutions instead of the people they are charged with protecting and serving. Not only do police uphold, defend, and offer excuses for acts of racism, but they also want to extend their empire. And if the facts are too much, this argument boils down to the most literal terms. One of Merriam-Webster's definitions for racism is a doctrine or a political program based on the assumption of racism and designed to execute its principles, or a political or social system based on racism. Perhaps comparing police to the Nazis is insensitive, but I cannot imagine what it must feel like to be hunted by one of the most feared military forces in the world, taken from your home and shipped to a place where you were served your oppressors until they decided to kill you. I cannot fathom a mass extermination on those levels. Slavery was real. It happened to my ancestors, my beautiful, black, intelligent brothers and sisters. I definitely cannot imagine how it must feel to know that the shadow of terror that hangs over your head has been eliminated. I don't know that. Black folks right here on this plantation called America have a shadow hanging over their head every day of their lives in every facet of activities that they have to participate in. Economics, religion, entertainment, law, labor, etc., etc. If you're black in America, you are in a rage most of the time because every time you leave your home, you know that you may not see your family, your mother, your children, your community again. That's what I have on this one. Please go to thethrasherway.libsyn.com.